Okay, I don't know about you, but I can't wait to be able to get out and take pictures again. So screw it, today is Creative Vlog. We're gonna do it indoors. The room in my new apartment where I have the best light is the bedroom, which gave me an idea.
Eh Mano, un petit shooting photo là, toi et moi. Un peu sexy, quelques portraits. T'en es?
Je suis occupée là. Quoi?
J'avais dessiné sur le sable son doux visage qui me souriait.
Okay, how can we define today's shoot? It's not a boudoir or glamour photoshoot, those are genres with particular codes. I prefer to define it as an intimate moments photoshoot. But anyway, in this type of picture, the first thing to think about... No, this is stupid. For absolutely any kind of any picture you take, the first thing to think about is what kind of light you're going to deal with. You know me, I mainly use natural light. This is personally the one I prefer to work with. Problem: I came back to France almost 2 months ago. I started to move into this new flat and I was almost finished when suddenly the quarantine started. So furnished, yes, almost, but decorated, I didn't have the time. So besides the fact that there won't be a lot of props to add to our scenes, I don't even have a curtain. So we will need to find some tricks to diffuse the light source.
Okay, first light test. That is correct. Despite the harsh light, I managed to create contrast by deliberately underexposing and bringing up the shadows in post-production. You can also take advantage of such a light source by shooting in front of it to make a contre-jour. But in my case, unfortunately, the balcony wall, in addition to reducing the effect, will not be very aesthetically pleasing in the background. So obviously, the best thing to do is to find ways to diffuse the light. Here, for example, I simply placed myself in front of Manoe to attenuate the luminosity by blocking the light with my body. In the end, any white surface that is not too opaque will let the light through, so I will try to use the bedsheet. It gives a softer light, more advantageous for the model and also more pleasant to work with. Of course, the photo is bad with the sheet that is cut in the middle, its reflection in the mirror, but yeah, just for the example.
Okay, for the light, despite this little constraint, we should be fine. About the gear I'm going to use, since you ask me every time, is these 3 lenses. The 28-75mm, my main lens, since it's the most versatile, from wide angle to almost telephoto. Fast enough, it opens at 2.8. I think 70% of the work will be done with it today. When I want a very shallow depth of field, I will switch to the 50mm, which opens a bit more. And the quality is damn good on this lens. Finally, the 16-35mm. I will use it at the widest angle. It will be useful when I need to widen my frame, when I want to include more of the scene in my image. The last thing we're going to focus on today is the poses of our model. With the light and the gear, we will manage the atmosphere of our shooting. The pose adopted by the model will determine the tone and the genre to which photo belongs. All this to say that today, what I would like to try to do is more to create a scene than an atmosphere, to make photos that are a little less glamorous but that could tell a more intimate life scene, to accessorize what there is in this young girl's universe rather than focusing just on her body. But the problem, how are we going to do that when this apartment is almost empty?
Typically, the problem with this image. Her slightly too sexy expression could have been counterbalanced if everything wasn't hopelessly empty on the verticality of the image. And above all, that? Seriously? This image is a little more interesting, especially thanks to the composition, which is structured by strong leading lines, but which are not very useful since they don't lead to anything, so the eye is not directed to anywhere in particular. It makes the image...
Boring!
Petite fille du soleil, le matin va venir. Petite fille du soleil, je dois partir.
I really like this image, the direct look into the lens and Manoe's expression. The only flaw for me is the shape of the blanket on her back. This one is better, with the addition of a foreground thanks to the flowers that bring a touch of color to the desperately white environment, and the cushion that closes the image on the right parallel to the flowers. It allows to direct the eyes towards her face. At the shooting, her fist put here seemed interesting, but after the edit, well, I don't like it anymore. And then still a blanket on her back. No, the pose is much too suggestive, the glasses are very badly placed and obstruct her gaze, the book is cut, yeah, no. This one I really like it. It's a nice portrait, very simple, and I like her dreamy expression. This series of photos is really nice, even if we stay in a very minimalist environment, there is yet something to tell. I really like here the extension of the hand that is done by the finger of the cover book picture. On this one I love her expression and the negative space above her head in opposition to the shapes and colors at the bottom of the picture. A really great image. If I may nitpick, I just wish the book had been a little better placed, as in this picture where we are really in the extension of the breast. Although very simple, I think it's one of my favorite images from today's shoot. I prefer it in landscape mode as well as in portrait mode, like here, even if the effects add a plus. If you want to know how to create this kind of effect, I suggest you to watch my latest video on 10 creative photos ideas to do at home. By the way, in the same video I gave you a tip to take cenital shots with your smartphone or a GoPro. If you want to do it with something heavier like your camera, I suggest you use a tripod or a good quality monopod, and bim. Very nice picture. I love the central opposition of the light zone and the shaded part. Her expression and pose are perfect. To be honest, I wanted to remove two little details that annoy me. The pajamas visible behind the pillow and her stocking here. Nothing that a little bit of Photoshop couldn't easily fix, but in the end I choose to keep the image as is.
It's quite fascinating, this peak of creativity that we observe on social media. All these videos on TikTok, these people singing on their balconies, the ones going to write the book, the screenplay they've always dreamed of writing, the people who are going to learn brand new skills on YouTube, for example. Are you interested in photo and video? Subscribe, ring the bell.
And you know why our creativity is exploding? You're gonna tell me because we have nothing else to do. Yeah, kinda. But because these constraints that we all find ourselves in, constraints in general, is what activates the creativity in us. Any project, the hardest thing is to start. A constraint to have a frame is to have the first step already accomplished.
Creativity, having an idea, is the realm of the mind. You can have an idea and spend years just thinking about it. But to have constraint on its realization is to force your brain to go beyond the theoretical, to think about putting it into practice.
The close-up portrait works pretty well, but I prefer landscape composition. I'm just not a big fan of Manoe's expression here. I prefer it on this picture, and also the slightly light-dark effect of the exposure. It's just the background that doesn't seem to be well integrated into the composition. The fact that the apartment is empty and white can also be an advantage. There is nothing better for diffusing light. These images are basic portraits, but the light is soft, and the fact that the background is empty allows you to concentrate on the model. Let's do the opposite and take advantage of the harsh light outside. Two interesting pictures with a very fashion photography feeling. In the same vibe, I love this image, the opposition between height and low lights, the leading lines that structure it. Personally, I love her expression, but Manoe don't really like it here. Another picture I like very much because of its well-defined three-block structure. The opposition between the angular geometrical shapes of the block and the building and the more curved shapes of the model is just perfect. And whoa, I love this one, and I'm sure some of you have guessed why. Yes, it's very cinematic. The wind in the hair, the expression, the light. Too bad it's tarnished by the unfortunate framing. There is definitely not enough space between her eyes and the top of the frame to breathe.
Moi, je construis des marionnettes avec de la ficelle et du papier. Elles sont jolies, les mignonnettes. Je vais vous les présenter.
Okay, the last step of our photoshoot, the living room, which is a little more furnished. I also have a few vinyls from before I move in that I can use to accessorize our images. The problem with the living room is that the only source of light comes from this window and I don't have many ways to diffuse it. The difference of luminosity between inside and outside will be too wide for the dynamic range of my sensor. If we include the window in the frame, we will have to make a choice. Here I try to attenuate its presence with a little reflection. In these images, I chose to put the wall in the background instead. But as a result, I have nothing particular to say here. I found these pictures a bit boring. It's a bit better here. The view from above makes the image more dynamic, and the mirrored faces of Manoé and Edith Piaf looking in the same direction, yeah, it works quite well. Here I choose to have my back to the light, and I hit the uninteresting background by shooting from above with the wooden floor and the flare. The opposition of light and shadow works pretty well. With this image I modeled the light by taking advantage of the rays thanks to the shutters. We have a rather sexy light and dark portrait that works. It's very nice. I love this picture. I deliberately reversed it because I think it has more impact like that. There is a lot of texture thanks to the vinyls and the wooden floor. It will be a perfect picture for an album cover actually.
This is the end, my friend. It's time for me to give you my favorite images from today's photoshoot. First of all, this one. Beautiful, with these little refraction points. I placed a glass not in front of the lens, but in the path of the light, and it projected it on the ground. Then this one. I love her expression, this light, the mess in the background. And finally, the last one. I don't even comment on it. Cinematic.
So yes, I have a model at home, it helps a lot. And I have several lenses, but all the problems due to the light, to the fact that the flat is almost empty. The result is not at all what I had in mind, but all these constraints force me to adapt. The constraint is the best friend of any art form. Okay, we can't leave our home right now. So what are you gonna do with that? See you, mate. Keep on creating.
Je lui dirai les mots bleus, les mots qu'on dit avec les yeux. Parler me semble ridicule. Je m'élance et puis je recule devant une phrase inutile qui briserait l'instant fragile d'une rencontre.